Welcome to Post Fight with Ray Thompson. This show is powered by MMA Crypt and MMA Mental. For more interviews and podcasts, please subscribe to our YouTube channels, MMA Crypt and MMA Mental. You can also follow MMA Crypt on Facebook and Twitter. It's at MMA Crypt on Twitter and MMA Crypt on Facebook. To follow me, it's at MMA Mental on Twitter and Ray Thompson on Facebook. I am now joined by Paul Felder. Paul's coming off a successful UFC debut, beating Jason Sagoo via split decision at UFC Fight Night 54, taking his pro record to 9-0 and his UFC record to 1-0. Paul, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, man. I'm glad to be on.
My pleasure. Congratulations as well on winning your UFC debut.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
Let's talk a little bit about the how it all came about then. Tell us how you were called up to the UFC.
Well, I just, I guess almost 8 or 9 weeks ago, I fought on August 9th at the Borgata for Cage Fury Fighting Championships. I was defending my belt, and I knocked out Craig Johnson with a spinning hook kick. And the next day, I was at the bar celebrating with my coaches, my team, my girlfriend. And my coach and manager were like, all right, well, cheers to the UFC. And I was like, whoa, don't jinx it if we get called. And they were like, no, man, you got the call. Here's the contract. They showed me the email that had been going back and forth with Joe Silva. And it had everything on there. That I was fighting Jason Sagoo and all that kind of stuff in Canada. And lost it a little bit, and then had one last good hurrah of a night that night, and then it was back in the training camp the next day.
So was it something you were expecting? Was it out of the blue? I mean, you must have been going through so many emotions when you got the call up. You must have been so excited.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was out of the blue, but I certainly didn't expect to hear on Sunday, the day after my fight. I mean, I'm still on a high from the night before, defending my title for Cage Fury, and then the next thing I know, I'm fighting in 7 weeks for the UFC. It was kind of like, whoa, what? But we kind of expected a call to come, but usually they come short notice. They really need somebody, and you're the next in line. So we were kind of going to start training anyway, but not expecting to go and have a full camp to go with. I mean, it couldn't have gone any better than to have a full training camp going into the debut.
Now, going into the fight, Jason was 1-0 in the UFC. What did you know about your opponent?
I knew that he was very good at jiu-jitsu. I knew he kind of got into mixed martial arts a little later in life. He was in college and he was studying, and I knew his friend got him into it and stuff. So I knew he was really good, and he had a really good submission game. He had won, I think, 8 out of 10 by first round submission or something insane. And I saw a couple of his matches. He was really calm and really intelligent, So fighting guys like that, they're always dangerous because they really compose themselves well in the cage. But I knew that the difference was going to be my strength and my aggression. I do fight to hurt you when I'm in there, not permanently, but when I'm hitting you, I'm looking to do damage. And I knew my aggression and my forward pressure was going to be a little more than his, and it was. That was the difference in the fight. I think was he hit me, he moved me around, he took me down, but when I hit him, he felt every single shot.
Now, in the first round, Sagoo was constantly looking for the takedown. Was it your game plan to keep the fight standing?
100%. 100%, yeah. I also like to ground and pound, but I knew with him, he was always going to be looking for sweeps, and he'll roll for an ankle, and he did that a couple times just when I started to get comfortable, and I really felt like I was going to be able to TKO him, landing big elbows. Man, he was sneaky, and he'd come through come out the back door, and he'd be latched onto a leg, and, we defended it well, but I knew he was slippery and sneaky on the ground, and I had rather been able to tee off on the feet, but by the time we got back to our feet, every time we had such a scramble, we were both just slowly getting fatigued from the amount of wrestling and jiu-jitsu that we were doing. So I was kind of disappointed I didn't get to really showcase my striking as much as I wanted to, but whatever, we got the win in the first fight. That's so important to get that first win.
Now, going back to your corner, how did you feel the first round went?
Man, when you're in there, you really have no idea. I thought I hit him super hard with some elbows, and I knew I had him dazed, and I knew that he wanted nothing to do with my striking. But I thought the first round was really close, but I think that I did more damage, and I know I landed more strikes in hindsight. But at the time, in the moment, I knew I needed to win the next 2 rounds just because I was in his hometown. So I didn't want to leave anything up to the judges. Of course, it ended up going there, but I was looking for the finish.
Now, in round 2, you had some success working from top position. Did you feel you had a much stronger second round?
Absolutely. I felt I opened up a little more in the second round, and when I got on top, I took advantage of it and made sure that he paid for, wanting the fight to be on the ground and keeping it on top and landing huge elbows. A few good right hands. I feel like if I could have stayed there in a few of those exchanges, he was on his way out. But like I said, he's a talented guy in jiu-jitsu, and he knew how to survive. But I feel like we were probably about 4 punches away from really putting his lights out.
Now, it was quite a grueling fight. How tired did you feel going into that third round?
Way too tired. I think I let it all get to me a little bit, and the amount of grappling and being in there for the first time with the UFC, it kind of got to me more than I expected. I am in shape for fights. I'm not one of those guys that's half-ass training and this and that. I was ready for 5 rounds, but the UFC jitters are official, but we got that out of the way. But you know what? I made sure that, and some people saw this in one of my other post-fight interviews. I always make sure that I stood up first in between every round and looked across the cage at him, still sitting on a stool. And I was tired, believe me. It doesn't matter. I mentally made sure that he knew that I was fresher than he was. And I think that helped. I ran to the center of the cage every time to touch his glove, just being like, I'm ready to go. But inside, like, I'm tired, man.
It really was a close fight. Now, how confident were you when it went to the judges that you would get the nod?
Never confident in decisions, man. I've seen too many fights get just massacred by these judges, and I think some of them are getting a little better, though, to be honest with you. But you never know who you have. I think that we're getting some judges that are starting to learn about the sport a little more, and they're noticing that the guys on the bottom can be winning a fight. It doesn't, just because a guy has his head in your chest and is holding you on the ground doesn't mean he's winning a fist fight. I mean, if it was a street fight and I'm elbowing you over and over, you're eventually going to get knocked out if you just lay there. And I feel like a few times in the fight I was on my back, yes. Doesn't look good, no, but I punched and strike from everywhere. And I think the judges really, at least 2 of the judges took that into consideration. I thought it was close. When they said split decision, I had no idea because he was in Canada. So, God forbid, I was like, man, that they're going to give it to their boy. And they didn't, which I was really impressed with. That I think that they were, biased and they actually watched the fight.
Did you have any injuries after the fight? And when would you like to get back into the cage?
I would love to get back in the cage in January, early January. I've been itching to start training already, and my coaches made me take these last 5 days off. Today I finally got back in the gym and did 5 or 6 MMA rounds with my teammates, and it felt great to get in there. No serious injuries. My elbows are sore from hitting Jason in the head. My shin's a little sore, probably from one of the kicks, but other than that, nothing that's holding me back from getting back into full training this coming week.
You mentioned there about getting in January. Have you got your eye on a certain card or just any of the cards in January? I've been talking to, I just talked to Donald Cerrone today on the phone. He doesn't know all the details about his fight. He just knows he's looking for January himself. And with the way things are going and the way I've been training with him, we're trying to work it out where maybe he can do a little, convincing with his UFC buddies and get me on one of the cards he's going to be on or around there. I've heard rumors that there's, some big fights coming up in Vegas too in January, and
still never fought in Vegas in my life. Would love to be on one of those huge cards coming up in January.
Now, after a
that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be good, and there is some great cards in Vegas. Now, after a successful UFC debut, any ideas on who you'd like to face next?
No, there's so many lightweights out there, and they're all so good. It's just whoever the UFC can just blindfoldedly point to somebody, and it's going to be a good fight, I think. And I think in this next one, I'm really going to be able to showcase that I'm a much more dangerous striker than I showed in that last fight.
Well,
but no, nobody in particular. If somebody comes to mind, I'll send it out on Twitter. But right now, I'm just now starting to think like, okay, when am I going to fight? Who are we going to fight? Try to reach out to my manager and Joe Silva and see what they want.
Well, I really appreciate you giving me your time. It's been great having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Before we let you go, I just want to give you a chance to do some shout-outs. So if there's anyone you'd like to thank, I know there's people to help you get ready, your sponsors, and also mention about your Facebook and your Twitter as well.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to thank StraightRazor.com, Hayabusa, of course. These guys helped me out, get a lot of stuff going. Training Mass really helped me out, gave me some training mass, and sponsored me for this last fight. My Twitter is Felder Paul. Same with my Instagram. And I'm really trying to push my Twitter followers right now, and I want to get a blue check next to my name. I see all the UFC fighters have a blue check next to their Twitter account. I can't figure out why I don't have a blue check yet. I don't think I'm popular enough yet, so I'm trying to work on that.
I'm sure you'll get one soon if you keep pulling off those wins in the UFC. Well, I can't wait to see you step in the cage again.
All right, thanks, man.